tonight on First at 9. This Thursday, the 19th of September 2024. The home stretch. Sri Lanka reaches an agreement in principle with the international sovereign bondholders. Also finalizes agreement with the China Development Bank. No mistakes. Disruptive incidents at polling centres will result in election results being delayed, warns the Election Commission. The final salvo. Presidential candidates hold the final rallies of their election campaigns as the pre-election silence comes into effect.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
වැඩිම මනාපෙන් ජනතා තේරීම මෙවරත්.
සුදේශී ඔරිජිනල් කුහුඹම තමයි.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Sri Lanka's premier primetime English news bulletin, Derana First at 9. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and from around the world. Now taking you to your top story this evening, Sri Lanka has reached an agreement in principle with the international sovereign bondholders on the restructuring of approximately $14.2 billion of sovereign bonds. Under this agreement, foreign bondholders will receive bonds linked to gross domestic product, also known as macro-linked bonds, with an initial haircut of 28%. This haircut may be partially reversed if economic growth exceeds expectations. Additionally, the island nation also finalized an agreement in principle with the China Development Bank regarding the restructuring of approximately $3.3 billion of sovereign debt.
The agreement in principle with the ad hoc group of bondholders follows the initial agreement reached in early July 2024 on the key terms of a contingent debt treatment. Accordingly, defaulted bonds and overdue interest will be exchanged for new instruments linked for future GDP growth, governance and standard fixed interest bonds. Releasing a statement regarding the agreement in principle with the bondholders, the Ministry of Finance stated that Sri Lanka is expected to benefit from an upfront debt stock reduction of approximately $3.2 billion, which could increase to a maximum of $4.6 billion in the event of an economic downturn. Conversely, this amount could decrease to a minimum of $2 billion if Sri Lanka's economic performance significantly exceeds expectations. Furthermore, under the baseline debt treatment scenario, the government's debt service payments over the IMF program period will be reduced by approximately $9.5 billion. The average maturity of the bonds will be extended by over 5 years and the interest rate will be reduced from 6.4% to an average of 4.4%. Bondholders will also consent to a present value concession of 40.3% in the baseline scenario, calculated using a discount factor of 11%. In terms of the highest state that will result from significant economic outperformance in the future, bondholders' present value concession relative to the joint working framework has increased from 27% to 33%. Meanwhile, the Minister of Finance also stated that the government has finalized an agreement in principle with the China Development Bank on the key financial terms for restructuring approximately $3.3 billion of sovereign debt. This agreement is based on a set of terms initially agreed upon in May 2024. Accordingly, the agreement in principle with the ad hoc group of bondholders, the local consortium of Sri Lanka and the China Development Bank nearly complete Sri Lanka's sovereign debt restructuring exercise as outlined under the IMF-supported program. Under these agreements, Sri Lanka will obtain relief of over $17 billion, which includes $2.4 billion from the Exim Bank of China, $2.9 billion from the Official Creditor Committee, $2.5 billion from the China Development Bank, and $9.5 billion from the bondholders.
Horizon Campus 2024 Intake 2. Register now.
චන්දුරුසුමේ කාගෙන් මනාපේ සිග TV සඳහා සුපිරි ඩීල්.
Now, all election campaigning activities for the 2024 presidential election concluded at midnight yesterday. With the conclusion of election campaigning, a period of pre-election silence will be in place until the polls open at 7 a.m. on the 21st of September. With less than 2 days remaining for the crucial election, preparations are underway at polling and counting centres across the island. The 2024 presidential election to elect Sri Lanka's 9th executive president will take place in another 2 days. 17.1 million Sri Lankans are eligible to cast votes in this year's election. Voting will take place at 13,421 polling centres across the island. Polls will open at 7 a.m. on the 21st of September and will close at 4 p.m.
Do not arrive at the polling centre inebriated. This will cause your opportunity to cast your vote to be forfeited. Additionally, do not carry bags or backpacks into polling centres. Carrying mobile phones into polling centres is also prohibited. Do not attempt to congregate in groups after casting your vote, as gatherings will not be permitted.
ඡන්ද පොලක යම් කඩාකප්පල්කාරී ක්‍රියාවක් සිදු වුණොත් ඒ ඡන්ද පොලේ ඡන්ද ස්ථානාධිපතිවරයාගේ වාර්තාවන්
If a disruptive incident occurs at a polling centre in accordance with the recommendations of the official in charge of the said polling centre, the Election Commission will take steps to invalidate the results from that polling centre. If the results of such polling centres alter the overall results of the election, the final result of the election cannot be announced without conducting another round of polling at such centres. During counting, the votes received by each candidate will be tallied first. It will be done at the electorate and district levels. After those results are communicated to the election secretariat, will determine the overall result of the election. We will assess whether any candidate has secured over 50% of the valid votes. If so, counting of votes will cease and the relevant candidate will be announced as the president-elect. If no candidate has been able to secure more than 50% of the votes, that will necessitate the tallying of preferential votes. During the process, the two candidates who secure the most votes will remain in contention, while the remaining candidates will be removed from the contention. Then the ballots cast in favour of the remaining candidates will be considered in order of most to least votes received, and we will tally the preferential votes cast in favour of the two leading candidates. Accordingly, the candidate who has received the most votes will be announced as the president-elect.
එයින් වැඩිම ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව ගත්තු අපේක්ෂකයා ජනාධිපතිවරයා වශයෙන් තෝරාපත් කරගන්නවා.
All election campaigning activities of the presidential candidates ceased at midnight yesterday. Accordingly, a period of pre-election silence will be in effect until election day. All forms of election campaigning are prohibited during this period. Meanwhile, the National Security Council convened this morning at the Presidential Secretariat, chaired by President Ranil Wickremesinghe, to discuss security arrangements for the presidential election. According to the President's Media Division, key discussions included maintaining law and order in the country on election day, safeguarding the presidential candidates, and upholding security at polling and counting centres. The Election Commission has issued recommendations on granting leave to employees for both public and private sectors in order to allow them to cast their vote. The Commission recommends granting half a day of leave if the workplace is located within 40 kilometres of the employee's designated polling centre, 1 day of leave if the distance is between 40 and 100 kilometres, 1.5 days of leave for distances between 100 and 150 kilometres, and 2 days of leave if the distance is greater than 150 kilometres. The Transport Board announced that a special long-distance bus service will be in operation today and tomorrow for people travelling home to cast their votes. Meanwhile, the Railways Department announced that a special train will be in operation between Colombo Fort and Kankasanture during the election period. The train will travel from Colombo Fort to Kankasanture today and on Saturday the 21st, and it will travel from Kankasanture to Colombo Fort tomorrow and on Sunday the 22nd. The Postal Department announces that voters who have not received their official poll card to be presented at the polling centre can collect them from their local post office up until election day after presenting proof of identity. Now, while highlighting that Sri Lanka cannot rely on aid forever, independent presidential candidate President Ranil Wickremesinghe asserted that Sri Lanka needs a strong governance and economy, which according to the president is only possible under his leadership. Addressing his final election campaign rally, the president warned that if the agreement with the International Monetary Fund is renegotiated, Sri Lanka will lose potential funding and international recognition. The final election campaign rally pledging support to independent presidential candidate President Ranil Wickremesinghe was held last evening in Grand Pass in central Colombo.
2022 අපේ රට තිබුණු තත්ත්වය මතක නම්
If you all can remember the state of our country in 2022, you will remember that there were 13-hour power cuts. People had to wait in queues for 3 to 4 days to get fuel and gas. When the opposition leader was asked to take the responsibility, he said he was unable to do that and turned away. If Ranil Wickremesinghe too failed to accept the responsibility back then, the state of Sri Lanka could have been similar to that of Bangladesh. All of you can witness the situation in Bangladesh. There were 19-hour power cuts yesterday. 219 garment factories were shut down. Employers are unable to pay their employees salaries. Ranil Wickremesinghe protected the country without letting it reach such a situation. This election is crucial. At this critical juncture, all Sri Lankans need Ranil Wickremesinghe to move forward. He has nothing to gain. However, the country needs to gain a lot of things.
එතුමාට තවත් දිනන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. හැබැයි රටට දිනන්න හුඟක් දේවල් තියෙනවා.
අද අභියෝග හමුවේ පැල්ල යන අය රූපවාහිනී විවාදයකටත් එන්නේ නැහැ.
Those who turned away without facing challenges are even unable to attend a television program. If someone believes that a second count of preferential votes may take place, keep in mind that Ranil Wickremesinghe has already claimed 2.7 million votes of the UNP and 3 million votes of the SLPP. There is no competition for us. We will claim the victory. 90% of the SLPP have joined hands with the program of Ranil Wickremesinghe. We know that we have claimed the victory already.
ඒ නිසා අපි දන්නවා මේක ජයග්‍රහණය කළා ඉවරයි. පෙරේද ඇවිල්ලා අනුර කුමාර දිසානායක මැතිතුමා
Recently, Anura Kumaris attended the program 360 of Derana. When he was queried whether he will continue the program with the IMF, he said that program has progressed halfway and they will be presenting the amendments to the IMF with regard to its way forward. He was queried again on what happens if the IMF rejects their amendments. Then he said he would continue with the program as it is. If he is planning to continue with the program as it is, why do we need him? Sajit Premadasa said that they plan to negotiate a fresh agreement. It took over 2 years to arrive at the existing agreement. It will take another 2 years to agree on another agreement. What happens if the IMF halts their support for Sri Lanka? I urge all of you not to make any mistake. If we make a mistake, our fate will be similar to that of Greece. Governance is not easy. It requires knowledge and experience. There's only one leader who possesses all of those qualities in Sri Lanka, and that is Ranil Wickremesinghe.
මොලේකුයි එක්ස්පීරියන්සුයි දෙකම තියෙන්න ඕනේ. එවැනි නායකයෙක් ලංකාවේ අද ඉතුරු වෙලා ඉන්නේ රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ විතරයි සහෝදරය මතක තියාගන්න.
මම මේක බාරගත්තේ මේ රටේ බංකොලොත්භාවය ප්‍රකාශ කරෑන් පස්සේ.
I accepted the responsibility following the announcement of bankruptcy. Our main issue was the inability to repay debt. We commenced discussions. We arrived at an agreement with the IMF, the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, which helps us to strengthen our economy and improve our ability to repay debt. Secondly, we arrived at an agreement with 18 creditor nations. It includes one agreement with 17 countries and a separate pact with China. We only need to arrive at an agreement with the bondholders. By the 19th of September, that task will be concluded, and a special statement in this regard will be delivered at the stock exchange in Singapore. We have arrived at agreements with all our creditors. The only strength for us at this point is the agreement with the IMF. Now we can come out of bankruptcy. Once we are out of bankruptcy, we can transact with foreign banks. Look at the benefits it will have for Sri Lanka. While the agreements are being implemented, we can convert our economy into an export-oriented and digital economy. That is what is included in the Puluwan Sri Lanka concept. Both Anura Kumaris and Sajit say they will renegotiate these agreements. If we renegotiate these agreements, we will lose potential funding and our recognition. Our bankruptcy will continue, and we will have to continue for another year without foreign funding. At that point, a dollar will be valued at 500 rupees. Do we need to fall into that extent or continue with the existing agreement? Please keep in mind that this country needs a better future. We cannot beg forever. We should move away from politics that spread falsehoods. We need a strong country. That is what the Puluwan Sri Lanka concept is all about. We can and we will claim victory. Please do one thing. Cast your vote in front of the symbol gas cylinder on the 21st of September.
එකක් කරන්න 21 වෙනිදා ගෑස් සිලින්ඩර් ළඟින් කතරේ ගහන්න.
Meanwhile, presidential candidate of the Samagya Jana Sandhana, opposition leader Sajit Premadasa, pledged not to use public funds for personal benefit after assuming the office of president. In his final rally ahead of the presidential election, he vowed to protect the country's 22 million citizens if elected in the upcoming poll. The final election campaign rally of the presidential candidate of the Samagi Jana Sandhanaya, opposition leader Sajit Premadasa, was held in Colombo yesterday.
The National People's Power has presented a massive program that neither we nor they fully understand. This is not their actual program. This is their real program that represents the radical manifesto of the JVP, which has been buried but will be implemented if they win on September 21st. Anura is striving for an atheist economy lacking political freedom and free elections, similar to other communist countries. The country would also lack economic freedom, business freedom and a friendly environment for investment. Therefore, remember that when you vote for Sajit Premadasa on the 21st, you're voting to protect economic, political and religious freedoms.
In an interview with Derana, Anura Kumaris stated that he will govern the country for a year and a half, and if he fails, he will give up. This is reminiscent of how former President Gotabaya stepped down and handed the office to President Wickremesinghe. Anura Kumaris is also claiming that they will step down in 2.5 years. We must ask, are you trying to hand over the position to Ranil Wickremesinghe again when you resign after 2.5 years?
I assure you that I will become the first volunteer president with your mandate. I will not use public funds to even take a sip of water, because governing a country does not equate to living a luxurious life. Taking on the temporary guardianship of this country carries a critical responsibility. My team, my party and my alliance are ready to take on that responsibility. We promise to safeguard all citizens across the 9 provinces living in 51,000 cities and villages and to make your lives prosperous.
Now, while highlighting that the incidents in the past should not be forgotten, leader and presidential candidate of the National People's Power, Anura Kumaris says that an NPP government will conduct investigations into the crimes committed in the past and punish the wrongdoers. Addressing his final election campaign rally, Disanayaka assured the public that he will implement a societal transformation that respects the law and order of the land if elected to the office of president in the forthcoming election. The final election campaign rally of the National People's Power, pledging support to its presidential candidate Anura Kumaris was held last evening in Nugegoda.
අද දේශපාලනය තුල බලවත්ම බලවේගය හැටියට ඉදිරියට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ ගැහැණු අපි. මේ අපි හදන අලුත් සමාජයේ ප්‍රධාන වෙනසක් වෙන්නේ මේ රටේ කාන්තාවන් ඒක ජයග්‍රහණයක්. මේ ජයග්‍රහණ සියල්ල තුලින්ම තමයි අපි 22 වෙනිදා ඉඳන් මේ රට හදන්න පටන් ගන්නෙ.
No matter who forgets, we will not forget fuel and gas queues. That is because all of us were in those queues. Our question to Ranil is whether he can remember those who created those queues. Those who created them are around him. The people in this country are ready to defeat those who created queues and those who protected them and developed this country.
All of us know the gravity of the economic crisis in Sri Lanka. Our country has collapsed to such an extent that it cannot be captured through statistics. We are claiming power on the 21st of September based on the public trust that we will turn around the situation. We are planning to implement a societal transformation. In order to do that, we have to ensure that the people in this country respect the rule of law. We have to improve the public's confidence in the law. We should not let incidents in the past be forgotten. We have to conduct investigations for the crimes committed in the past and punish the wrongdoers. We will establish law and order to ensure that justice is being served. Let's create a government for the common people on the 21st of September. We know how to earn and protect dollars. After destroying the country for so long, they are asking for another chance. We are ready to rebuild this country. There has to be a change in the entire system. To do that, please contribute to claiming a strong victory for the NPP on the 21st of September.
එළබෙන 21 වෙනිදා ශක්තිමත් ජයග්‍රහණයක් මාලිමාට ආරම්භ දෙන මැදිහත් වෙමු එකතු වෙමු කියලා ආරාධනා කරමින් ජය වේවා කියලා ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරමු.
The presidential candidate of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Namal Rajapakse, says that he will not allow anyone to divide the nation, which his father, former President Mahinda Rajapakse, safeguarded. While addressing the final rally of his election campaign in Casbah yesterday, Namal Rajapakse asserted that he and his party have not made any decision to inconvenience the Sri Lankan public and pledged not to do so in the future if elected to the office in the upcoming election.
The last election campaign rally of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna was held yesterday in Casbah under the patronage of the presidential candidate of the party, Namal Rajapakse.
The
NPP has changed their narrative. Now they claim that the billions in loans taken by the Rajapakses are being paid back. The same people who called us economic assassins are now saying we are not like that. We stated this clearly before. The government that took over in 2015 borrowed $12.5 billion US. No one knows what happened to that money as there's nothing to show as development during their time. All three candidates contesting alongside Namal were part of that government, and now they are starting to self-criticize. We are done staying quiet. Go to the polling station on the 21st and vote for the SLPP.
අපි මේ රටේ වැඩ කළා තියෙනවා. එදා මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිතුමා මේ රට සංවර්ධනය කිරීමේ සලස්මක් එක්ක ජාතික වැඩපිළිවෙලක් එක්ක දේශපාලනය කළා.
We have worked hard for this country. Former President Mahinda Rajapakse entered politics with a development plan and a vision. They now discuss profits from the highways, yet when we were developing them, they were criticizing the efforts. The people who criticize the construction of the Lotus Tower don't even understand its purpose. We had a plan to make Sri Lanka our communication hub, and we assure you we have a plan for the port city Colombo. I promise that after winning this election, our government will establish Sri Lanka as a trading hub in Asia. Those who said the country went into bankruptcy are now claiming the Rajapakses are innocent. Former President Gotabaya was innocent. I saw Anura Kumaris state that the loans taken by President Vikramasinghe were the result of President Gotabaya's administration. We have not made decisions that harm the public. Every decision we made was to keep citizens safe. We have not made any decisions to inconvenience the public, and we will not do so in the future. I promise you at this rally that I will not allow anyone to divide this country that was saved by Mahinda Rajapakse.
Meanwhile, presidential candidate of the Sarva Jana Bale, Dilith Jaa, assured that the strategic plan designed by his alliance will protect the future generations of Sri Lanka. Addressing the final campaign rally of his campaign in Colombo, Jaa requested the people to vote for him to be the president of Sri Lanka in order to create a change in the country. The final presidential election campaign rally of Sarva Jana Bale's presidential candidate Dilith Jaa was held last evening in Kot Tower.
The most commonly used slogan in Sri Lanka's political stage is apprehending thieves. In 1994, former President Chandrika Kumaratunga secured power by chanting the slogan apprehending thieves. However, she could not apprehend a single thief. In 2015, Maithripala Sirisena also secured power by chanting the same slogan. In that government, it was Anura Kumaris who was in charge of apprehending thieves. In the end, he stole all the files and went home. Rather than apprehending thieves, Dilith Jaa has introduced a practical political solution to eradicate theft from the country.
විතරමයි කියන එක අපි බය නැතුව කියනවා.
දිලිත් ජයවීර මහත්තයාගේ මාසික ආදායම මිලියන 16.5යි.
The monthly income of Dilith Jaa is 16.5 million rupees. He fearlessly told the Election Commission that his monthly income is 16.5 million rupees. Do you think Dilith Jaa, whose monthly income is 16.5 million rupees, is contesting to earn more income? Do you think he is contesting to steal more resources or drag the country further down from its current plight? Isn't a person like Dilith, who has owned and managed over 50 companies, suitable to revive the country from its current economic plight?
ආර්ථික ප්‍රපාතයෙන් මේ රට ගොඩ ගන්න මේ තීරණාත්මක ජනාධිපතිවරණයේදී
In this presidential election, the people in this country should deliver an unexpected result. I'm urging a change not because I want a change in my life. I have nothing to earn. The people have not been granted an opportunity such as this in Sri Lanka's political history. All of you did not have an alternative allowing you to make a decision by moving away from traditional politics. We have designed a program that protects your unborn child and the nation. Please think about your unborn child and cast your vote in front of the symbol star, which will make all of you victorious. I'm a person who is different, and I assure you that your vote for me will not leave you disappointed.
අපේ මාතෘ භූමිය දිනේවා. ඔබ සියලු දෙනාටම ජය වේවායි පතමින් මම නියඩ වෙනවා.
Star dishwasher Dali Hell Indul පහසුවෙන් සේදේ. Star dishwasher magic tub එක.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Welcome back. Sri Lanka's manufacturing and service sectors continue to expand in August, registering index values of over 50, but at a slower rate compared to the previous month. According to the central bank, the manufacturing PMI was 56 or 55.5% rather in August this year, after recording 59.5 in July, with new orders and production mainly driven by the manufacture of food and beverages. The central bank statement said that all sub-indices except for employment remained above the neutral threshold in August. The services PMI recorded 65.2 in August after 71.1 in July. Business activity expansion was driven by improvements observed across most sectors. Business activities have grown mainly due to improvements in entertainment and recreation activities. Further, business activities in the wholesale and retail trade, transportation services and financial services also indicated a considerable growth during the month. However, business activities in the telecommunication, real estate and IT programming consultancy related activities remained at the same level as in the previous month. The Colombo Bourse edged up today as a result of price gains in counters such as Commercial Bank, Melster Corp and National Development Bank, with the turnover crossing 1.2 billion rupees. The CSE All Share Index settled 0.54% higher at 10,884.57 points, snapping a 4-session losing streak. Trading volume on the index rose to 57.4 million shares from 39.9 million in the previous session. The S&P Sri Lanka 20 also ended 0.81% higher at 3,061.76 points. The banking sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, while the food, beverage and tobacco sector came in second. Foreign investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 38.9 million rupees, while domestic investors were net buyers, purchasing shares worth 1.2 billion rupees. And with that, let's take a look at the rupee exchange rate for the day. And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining and have a good night.